Aloha. With this video, I wanted to do a follow-up to my fasting, but also include the psycho-spiritual weaponization of food overall. So knock out two birds with one stone and kind of just carry on this little series that I think I'll start breaking things down from, because it doesn't really involve anything else other than like how I'm seeing things. So I don't really need to go, pull from anything else. And largely a lot of this stuff has already been said in different videos. But I think it's good now to start to kind of polish a lot of the perspectives and some of the videos. Like I said, there's like pushing 1,000 videos on this channel now, and even the video I did last night about Nassim Haramein. Like I discovered Nassim Haramein stuff in like 2011, and then so like 8 years ago, and I did a video that was the same kind of video, just in a different way, like a year ago or 2 years ago. So yeah, I think it's good to kind of like pick from the pieces that have already been put down, and then kind of like evolve them into what the current events are dictating on a macro scale, because the current events that are being dictated on a micro scale from the macro perspective are obvious now. And I've spent a lot of videos, like I'm doing an Owen Benjamin video right now that'll probably be uploaded before this one. But like, I don't feel any need or real desire to pay attention to dudes like that. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, they're in damage control right now. So doing any videos like that is kind of like extra. I mean, it's cool. It does help certain people see certain things, but right now it kind of feels like a waste of my time, because there's already so many people doing it. And not to mention, like, it only goes to a certain point. So if I'm maximizing my time, I'm comfortable and confident enough in myself to be able to just kind of freestyle on perspectives that, that are already there. The same way kind of Owen Benjamin does his little fireside chat. So this is why I said, like, Owen Benjamin and Will Smith and Jack Black and all these Hollywood people, they're out there for nothing more than to normalize the system, the establishment, the regime, the current events, to normalize this Western so-called civilization, to normalize your enslavement, to normalize your livelihood being slowly shrunken down into nothing, and that that energy that is being kind of siphoned away from your beingness through your ignorance, your amplified ignorance, that is being profited on by the system. So it's easy to see with the psycho-spiritual weaponization of food. It's the same thing with the psycho-spiritual weaponization of the medical industry. So when I'm talking about food, I'm not talking about food just from food. I'm talking about food from like the macro perspective. So the macro perspective, for people who are new or don't know about that, macro perspective in reference to how does food killing like thousands and millions of people benefit the system? Well, obviously, how does McDonald's make money? How does McDonald's, like, they advertise, they market to children, they cater to your child mind, they use sex to sell burgers. Look at your Carl's Jr. commercials. They sell you food that really doesn't fill you. It's not fulfilling food, just the same way this society is not a fulfilling society. It has nothing to do with filling your world with fullness. It has everything to do with filling your world with a synthetic fullness. The same way They're coming out with the simulation theory, heliocentrism. That fills you with a synthetic fullness, and you're being filled with a synthetic fullness that is actually a real emptiness. So the Big Bang, you're full of, your origin story comes from emptiness, nothingness, purposelessness. So purposelessness. Excuse me. So this is the design of enslaving the masses. So like I said in previous videos, we could be enslaved by the physical consciousness because we believed that the kings and queens were given their authority over us by God. And that was backed up by religion saying, hey, these kings got their, their power from God. And look, King James wrote the Bible, or marketed the Bible. So, this is how this is. That's why there is no separation from church and state. You have King James on the Bible. It's the actual name of the fucking Bible. So when they realized that was a big ass problem because that's how they were controlling people, when they started the new world, they had to say, well, we have to look different than the old world. So we'll say that, the people are in charge, the immigrants, the settlers, the colonizers, really. We'll say that they're the ones who are in charge, not us. So we'll just tell them it's a democracy. We'll tell them it's a capitalistic system. We'll make them vote, but we're not going to, the vote's not going to matter. We'll still do whatever the fuck we want to do because we have the power right now, but we have to ensure that they do not think that this is the same system as before. It has to be new. It has to be fresh. It has to be something cool and hip. You get some hot dogs out there. You shoot off some fucking fireworks. We need a fucking Santa Claus. We need a fucking Easter Bunny. We need a fucking we need a Black History Month, damn it, because they're the ones who give them a whole fucking month. But put our presidents in there too, and put our, make it the shortest month, and let them have their leaders too. But we'll just take them out once they become too controversial and start threatening our system. Just kill them, because it's only going to be a few of them, because the majority of them are still going to be slave-minded and just going to keep eating the shit we feed them, literally. So they won't have any kind of power. They'll be overweight physically. They'll be obese psychologically, and completely like stagnant and so over weighed down spiritually in so many different ways, from the psychological and the physical warfare and the spiritual warfare, that they won't even know what the spirit or the soul is, and they won't even care. They only need to know that, maybe a soul exists, so they have something to look forward to after death. But, even that gets channeled through, Jesus taking care of everything, or whatever mainstream religion tells you what to do. So you can see that this system is not really, it's not at all for the benefit of the people. Every single thing is weaponized. So this is why I have to focus on so many tiny little things, like relationships. It seems tiny, but when I go on a rant and then I have to make a fucking part 2 to that, that's a big deal. So food, I don't really have to go too much into, because you can see it and you can feel it. So like the food pyramid, or a better example, people know about the food pyramid. It's just built up. It's just like make-believe. Is no different than the Easter Bunny, and it has nothing. It's set in that same scientific study bullshit that people like Joe Rogan worship. So every time Joe Rogan reverts to or references look at these scientists, these are the scientists that did this, this, and this, and this, and ha ha ha, and you're just a dummy who doesn't follow and listen to scientists. How dare you? And then, so that same kind of arrogant, dumbass, ignorant mentality that he has towards anything that goes against the mainstream scientific perspectives of what's going on, like you're automatically, you know, dumb. You're automatically not even worth talking to. That's the same way the system is when you present historical data, truth, that threatens their history books, their reality. This is why people like Joe Rogan are so obviously enemies of the people. They're enemies of the consciousness, the true organic nature of who and what we are. This hot dogs and hamburgers and 4th of July bullshit, what the fuck does this have to do with the soul and the spirit? Nothing. I realized that more after my fast, because before that, like I said, I wasn't even, I wasn't eating horribly. I was pretty much a vegetarian, like I was saying. Every now and again, I would have probably like a few times a year, I would have like some turkey or a little bit of chicken or something like that. But that was it, and then that would go down to basically nothing. When I hit the fast, it was right after I had like a few days where I was hanging out with some people and just, you know, ate a bunch of shit, and I just did not feel right. Shit I shouldn't be eating. So I really needed that fast. So I did the fast. And when I was done, it was 15 days. So I guess I'll go into that now. Starting in the fast, the first 3 days were not that difficult. Everybody says that, but day 4 was fucking horrible. Day 4 and 5 was like, oh shit, like what are you doing? It was mostly horrible in the psychological aspect of it. Like I said, it wasn't a complete water fast. I was still taking my sea moss, my CBD oil, my sea buckthorn oil, my chlorophyll, and between 1 and 4 dates a day. It started off at like 2 in the morning and 2 at night. 2 dates in the morning and 2 at night, and then after like day 6 it like went down to like 2, and then after like day 8 it went down to like 1 a day until day 15. So because I wanted to not need it, but your brain needs sugar every 3 days, or glucose every 3 days. So the best organic glucose that I could find and that I felt comfortable with was dates. I would have liked seeded grapes, but organic seeded grapes, but I went to every single so-called health food store around here. Nobody has seeded grapes anymore. They're all seedless organic, which is an oxymoron. So anyway, so I started with that. After like day 5, a sense of euphoria set in. So like in between like day 5 and 6, that's when some euphoria set in, to where I got this boost of energy, to where energy like physically and psychologically and spiritually. I was like, what the fuck? Like, this is amazing. I could do anything. I was on point. I was sharp. Everything was cool. And then like after that, my body started to like slow down. And no matter like how little I did, I still felt kind of like I didn't need to do much, which was normal because you're fasting. So your body is kind of like cleaning itself out. It's working and it's not working at the same time. It's in shock. But nothing was really going on like horribly. It was just like that's what was going on. So I was thinking to go as long as I needed to go, or just go as long as what felt normal. So at day 15, that's what felt normal to me, based upon like my life, like what's going on as far as like what I'm doing in the next, you know, few weeks and months. And because if I would have been finishing my fast, if it was 40 straight days, it would have been around like, I think a few days ago, the 10th. So yeah, the 10th of January. Was it the 10th? 30 or the 20th? No, the 20th. So in a few days I would have been finishing my fast. But what I needed to learn, like I'm not saying that I won't do it again. I would, like, that was the idea. It was like, okay, well, I don't need, since this is my first fast and this feels comfortable to stop right now, I don't really need to push it to 40 days. Maybe I'll do 15 now, and then another time I'll do 30, because my mind is now prepped. It's like my brain is, my muscle, that muscle is now ready. Now I know what to look for, and I can go longer now. So now I can, instead of having 3 days to be comfortable with, now I'll be good starting out with like a week. And then I can go into like the 30 days or the 40-day fast. So that's where my mind was with that. I was also feeling really kind of like, all right, let's get back to work. Like, it's time to start getting back to work and doing things. And I didn't have the energy to do that. So that's also why I needed to break the fast. When I broke my fast, first thing I ate was an avocado, and then I got some Thai noodles with some Thai noodles with some vegetables, and then I just slowly ate that. And then it really, that whole fast affected my whole diet, to where like I said, I had been intermittent fasting for the last few years now. That just means I won't eat for like a day or 2 days or 2.5 days or something like that, or even hours, like maybe like 16 hours or 20 hours or something like that. That's what felt normal to me. So that's what I was already doing for a few years. I had tried a fast one time in 2010. It was one of those like cayenne pepper, maple syrup, lemon juice fast, like a Facebook thing, that whatever. And then I did that for like 2 or 3 days, and then I think it was 3 days. But psychologically and spiritually, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I knew I was doing, to some degree, way more of a degree this time. So that's why I went fully into it. Excuse me. So when I finished my fast, before my fast, I was already eating an average of 1.5 meals a day, because over the last like 9 years, I had been working on my food intake. Like, what is this relationship that I have with food? Because the relationship that was downloaded to me by the society, that was downloaded to me by family, both sides of my family, like everybody in my family and friends, everybody around me was eating this self-destructive garbage shit. And people in my family were fucking dying from this shit. My father died from heart failure mostly because of his diet. He also smoked cigarettes too, but mostly because of his diet. 2 times he was faced with congestive heart failure. And then the second time, kidney failure, and then he bounced out of here. So, food is a very important thing to pay attention to right now, especially when you realize that this is a weapon. This is a weapon against your children. This is a weapon against your family. This is a weapon against your friends, your spouse, your grandmother, your grandpa. Like, take this shit personal. This is the thing, this is the reason why shit never really gets dealt with, is because we don't take things personal anymore. We don't really we don't lock it in to our responsibility, because we've given our responsibility away to this so-called democratic society. So we don't take responsibility for the health and welfare of our own family, because we've given away to shit like the food pyramid and people like Joe Rogan, who dictate what the fuck we think about every day. So people like Joe Rogan, like when I'm talking about what I'm talking about right now, when I speak about individuals like Owen, Benjamin, Joe Rogan, these truther channels and all this other shit, this ain't really for the adults. Like, cause the adults who get on here, they're already in a space to believe whatever there is, they gonna fucking believe. They're already there. If you ain't hearing where I'm coming from, you ain't gonna hear. Like, just don't even be around this right now. Because, and the point being why I say that is because this stuff, if you're having difficulty with this information, however it is, this is obviously not for you. Because mostly my intention with this is to have this information existing out there for the kids, future generations who don't have to deal with all the bullshit that these adults have downloaded and are still trying to defend. Like if I was telling this to Joe Rogan right now, look at how red his face would get. Look at that little thumb face, that thumb head of his, and look at his whole like demeanor. Just listen to his voice. Look at his face right now in his podcast. If I was sitting on a chair across from him on a microphone saying exactly what I'm saying right now. Look at what he would be texting his little fucking lackey behind the camera to Google to debunk what I'm saying right now, to defend the fucking food pyramid, to defend congestive heart failure, like the psychological intention to expand congestive heart failure through the masses of people to make a profit off of their death and birth certificates. So when you eat, like this is stressful, stress eating. People eat to deal with stress. People have sex to deal with stress. When you have sex, you have babies. When you eat and you're stressed, you have all this stuff is triggered. When you eat, that makes you have to provide more energy, more money to provide that food. In order to get that food, you got to provide more energy into the system. When you have children, because you're stressed out, because the society makes you empty and purposeless. When you have all these kids to fill your life with something fucking real. Because this whole world is based upon emptiness and nothing real. So when these people have babies and babies and babies because they have nothing fucking real, nothing of any kind of soul essence in their life, a lot of the times they're filling their lives with this empty sort of fullness. And they're filling it with what the system has designed. And they're filling it with a space that locks them further and further into the system. So you have babies, you got to feed those babies. You got to provide for those babies. You got to educate those babies. You got to insert those babies. You're building, basically, you're like birthing. What is that? What's a good comparison? People are like birthing. People are like birthing smartphones. And what use is a smartphone if it's not connected to the internet? What use is a smartphone if it's not connected to, if it can't download all these apps? If you can't go to the App Store. You can't access the App Store unless you sign up for a Google account. You can't access, the Apple Store unless you sign up for a Google account and have an Apple product. So this is the same way, like you're birthing Apple products into this system, and the system is saying, oh, you have to sign your Apple product up to this thing. But by the time you do that, you sign all the contracts, you accept all these restrictions and guidelines, you check off that block, and you've just inserted your brand new soul child into the Apple system, the Apple program. Now they own you. Now their whole lives, what they think their life is about, is dictated by the system. You, as who birthed them, you have given their soul away to the slave masters. So what do you think the children are going to do when they have children? They're going to give their babies away to the slave masters. So this is what's happening on every psychospiritual weaponization scale. It's happening on relationships. You give your child's psychological relationship away to the system. You give your child's health and welfare away to the system when you feed them this American dream shit. You give their intellect and their maximum capabilities, to some degree, you give it away to the education system. You give their spirit and their soul away to the mainstream religions. You give their potential for like soul connections away to the material aspects of reality, or like, what's fancy. So like people who are raised, who are surrounded by Barbie commercials all the time. You think that's not going to affect the way they see their partner? If they are triggered with like the white Oscars since they're a baby, like a G.I. Joe, all the cartoons, all these so-called Caucasian or white, so-called white people, cartoons, movies, TV shows, commercials, you don't think that's going to affect the original people of this land psychologically, spiritually, and even physically when they look for a partner? Of course it is. And that's on purpose. That's to further anchor in the storyline. This is why the whole interracial storyline is being emphasized in mainstream society. So look at your commercials. Look at your TV shows. You always see a black man or a black woman with a white man or a white woman. Even in the gay LGBT community, it's the same thing. They're pushing this interracial this interracial thing because they're saying the new age, which is the next mind control program, is saying the same thing. We're all one. We're all the same. It's all this simple. Don't look into anything more. Your culture doesn't matter. It's just human. We're it. That's it. It's human against the bad guys. Okay? Human and nature. It's as simple as that, people. Your ancestors don't matter. Machu Picchu doesn't matter. The pyramids of Giza don't matter. The alchemy of your ancestors don't matter. Like what they experienced and what they realized over hundreds and hundreds and thousands and hundreds of thousands of years, that doesn't matter, because what matters is today unity and not being divisive. And we're all the same. Everything is one. We're all been enslaved. Everything. Let's just get over it. That's basically what's being said right now. So we give them that informed. We give the system that feeling, that power, when we don't know who the fuck we are, or where we're coming from, or what we're talking about. So we give them that power when we feed our kids this poison. This is poison. It's mainstream poison. So psychologically, the whole interracial thing, just like this food, is a mainstream poison. In a sense, not on a micro scale. In a sense, I mean, people can defend whatever they say from a micro scale, but definitely on a macro scale, the interracial storyline is being emphasized in society in order to keep people to glorify that whole we're all one, we're all human, nothing of your ethnicity and your ancestors matters, and also to amplify and glorify the United States of America, the immigrant, the post-Columbian America consciousness. That's what's being emphasized with the interracial dating thing. So as long as if they push, like, if they hurry up and you know, blend everything in, they can maintain power longer. So the same way, like they're manipulating through commercials, TV, movies, Hollywood, celebrities, relationships, and all this stuff. They push it because they're playing in the long run. They're playing the numbers. The same way, like I said, with Taco Bell plays the number. Taco Bell, everybody knows Taco Bell gives you the shits. Do you think Taco Bell doesn't know that it gives people the shits? Do you think Taco Bell doesn't know that it can make more money off of people from giving them the shits? Do you not know that shit? Can you not see that basic marketing technique states? This is in an economics class or whatever. What was his name? My economics teacher in high school. That was one of the coolest dudes ever. He was a tall ass dude. He was like 6'5" or something like that. He was a sports director too. He had a cool ass name. Started with a C. C-L. Anyway. Damn it. Cool dude. I was just seeing if anybody else went to the same school as I did. Because he was there for like years. You would know who his name was. The economic teachers at Mac in West Oakland. What's his name? I think he had like a French name. It was like an old Creole dude. Anyway. So yeah, the economics of Taco Bell. that consciousness of diarrhea. So they know there's an algorithm. There's a not an algorithm. There is an algorithm, but there's a equation somewhere. Think of Einstein, like E equals MC squared. Think of like diarrhea or money equals diarrhea plus profit equals diarrhea plus empty food. So more empty food that they sell, the hungrier you are. The faster you shit out the empty food that they sell you, the more money that they get. So, like, the faster you eat it, or the less full you are, the more money they get. They get more pennies, they get more quarters and more dollars in the long run. The more you shit yourself, the more you'll have to eat again. So they get more money in the long run. This is happening with every single thing. The more you kill yourself, the faster you kill yourself, they get paid. The Federal Reserve gets paid for your death certificate. They get like a lien. When your birth certificate puts a lien on your soul, when your babies are here, you are convinced by the car salesman of the used car salesman of this reality. You're convinced by the used car salesman of this reality to put your children up for like to put a loan against the soul of your children. And you don't have any idea of what that means. But the system who made you do that does. That's what your birth certificate is. That's what your social security number is. That's what your death certificate is. These are certificates. What do you need a certificate for? People are cashing in on this shit. Until this gets recognized, Owen Benjamin ain't gonna fucking talk about this. If he does, this is what I'm talking about. This is why people like Joe Rogan, Alex Jones, and Owen Benjamin exist. It's because the longer they exist out there to draw out this storyline, like I said, these motherfuckers are 3, 4, 5, and if you go on and further, modern day, they're 3, 4, and 5 years behind what's going on. If you go for, a macro scale for people who've been talking this shit for hundreds and thousands of years, they way behind this shit. So it's even more a B-list movie. So they are out there to steal your time. 2 hours of Owen Benjamin with 5,000 people. Do the algorithm for that. 2 hours of Owen Benjamin consciousness multiplied times 5,000. Give the benefit of the doubt to him and his channel that he actually has 5,000 people. Just for example purposes, and YouTube's not fucking with the numbers. He actually has 5,000 people watching his live stream. That's a lot of people. Owen Benjamin consciousness plus 5,000 people equals a lowering of the macro consciousness, or at least a stopping or a slowing down of the expansion of consciousness to some degree, because other people are going to expand from consciousness. But the majority of people who are watching that are only watching it to reassure themselves of their own belief systems. Look at the comment section. Everybody who watches everybody that they're watching is only there really watching to reaffirm what they already believe. They're not really there to learn anything new. And if somebody else is there to learn something new, it's the smaller percentage of people. People are like really comfortable with crews and groups and stuff like that. We need that because we're so empty. This is why YouTube sensations or celebrities are so, and celebrities on YouTube is such an attractive thing. So this is why it's being used as a weapon against the people. And like I said, this is to steal your time, to steal your energy, to steal your potential threat against this establishment. Like to stop that or stifle it in some kind of way. That's what these individuals represent. That's what food represents. If you're 500 fucking pounds and like 5'8", what the fuck are you gonna do to protect your children in like a revolution or something like that? You have to be totally, completely, utterly attached to this system. Like when you're like 500 pounds, I'm using not only physical consciousness and physical pounds, but psychological pounds and spiritual pounds. You weigh yourself down to the actual foundation of the house that the system built for you. You're born here. You're basically weightless. A baby weighs ounces. Fucking 1 pound in ounces. So they're physically, spiritually, and psychologically as light as can be. They are fucking pure, locked in, And as soon as they get here, the system teaches and preaches to their parents, you need to fuck this kid up. You need to destroy this child. So when they become an adult, they'll be broken like you. Like you break your dogs and cat and animals. You break your dog. You break them for this system so that when they come into this system, they'll know where they stand. They'll know what they're supposed to do. And then eventually people are not even going to take that position because mostly people are just like glorifying this. They love this shit. They're proud of a bacon cheeseburger fit in between a glazed donut, 2 glazed donuts. Like, that's a pride. Bacon is an American pride. The 4th of July, the fireworks, the bombs that they're singing when they sing the Star Spangled Banner and all that shit, it represents exploding indigenous people. Fireworks on 4th of July represents the exploding bodies of the indigenous people. The exploding physical, psychological, and spiritual bodies of the indigenous Americans. This is what 4th of July represents. This is what the entire culture of the like the cowboy, Texas, that's what that represents. In order to hide this shit, they name their community colleges after Native American people or Native American tribes. So they steal this land. And in order to not be seen or put on blast for what they are, they put a community college in there to make it look like they're cool, like they're for the people. And then even to make it even worse, they name a community college after like the people that they stole the land from. And then like to put more salt in the wound, like this is a real thing. I'm saying this is a real fucking thing. Check this shit out. And there might be way more than one. There is actually now a community college built on stolen Native American land, named after the Native American tribe that they stole the land from. And the school's mascot is a fucking cowboy. A Native American named school is a white cowboy mask, has a white cowboy mascot on stolen Native American land. This is the depths of the psychological warfare that's going on right now. People so you guys see, look at all the cheerleaders and the sports people that play for that school and all that, you know, wearing their colors. There's a pride in that shit. The pride in that community college is the same pride that people have in the American way, in the American dream. Look at this shit. The fuck is this? Oh, this is actually a good one. I just had some of them Beyond Burgers the other day. Not the Beyond Burger. I had the Beyond Burger before. It's all right. It's more edible than all the other shit. But highly recommend. For now, I haven't gone into researching it or anything like that. But if you're moving towards not eating meat and you're looking for plant-based stuff, so far I haven't seen anything wrong with the Beyond Meat company. Like I said, their burgers are all right. But what's really good, I just had yesterday just to try it out, are their hot links. Because I ain't had a hot link in like hell long. And that's like a nostalgic thing for me. Because my dad, like I said, he died from congestive heart failure. His thing for me was, lunch was a hot link and some ketchup on like a dessert plate. That was it. That's lunch. And some chips. Some barbecue Lays or some regular potato chips and a glass of ice soda pop, Coca-Cola. That's lunch. That's a nostalgic. I just shared a nostalgic story with my father. That is the psycho-spiritual weaponization of the relationship between you and your parents with food. So on the side note to that, that Beyond Meat company makes a pretty good hot link that's at least edible. And beyond that, it's actually more than edible. It's actually pretty good. So try it out if you're looking for something like that. Anyway, it was pretty good. What else do I have to say? I don't think I have to say anything more about it. You can see this shit. Look at this mentality. Food is, oh, okay, that's what I missed. Food is not a spiritual thing. Here, like, even in like the indigenous cultures, when they killed a turkey or when they killed like a buffalo or something like that, they used every part of it. It was a spiritual relationship there. This is something like the vegan, like hardcore vegan stuff. They don't come from that perspective. They come from the perspective of protecting the system. The whole vegan agenda is like the New Age agenda, to appear good, but it's really there to focus all your attention on the system itself. So the vegan agenda, this is why the vegan agenda is so much about the corporate attack on animals and like life and all that other stuff. But they really don't go into the spiritual warfare. They really don't go into the psycho-spiritual weaponization of everything. It's very, very linear. It's very, very focused. And that's why I said I don't even let them do whatever he's going to do. But for people who are outside of that, realize that, yeah, I'm not saying don't look at why, it's fucked up to put all that. I'm saying, like, take it from there, start there, but don't stop there. Go further than that. Go into the psychological warfare. Go into the spiritual warfare. Talking about how it's fucked up to kill the physical being is one way. It's not wrong. But another way is to talk about the manipulation of the psyche of eating and killing those beings on a massive scale like that. And then the spiritual implications of that over time. That's another world that we don't tap in. And that the system doesn't want you to tap into. Which is why the vegan agenda is amplified and talked about so much. Because ultimately it's still focused on the physical warfare. So you got the vegan agenda. You got this protein agenda is another thing too. The protein agenda is no different than like the food pyramid agenda. It's the same effect. The protein agenda is mostly to separate, is to anchor in your physical consciousness and separate you from your spiritual consciousness. So if your relationship with food, energy, is focused on protein, and protein is the main protein that they're saying that you're going to get is from meat, then like your main energy source needs to come from the death of other beings. That's something fucked up with that, especially if you can live off of, like, overall, like on a macro scale. And like I said, this is another kind of in between. This is where I'm moving towards, like, not eating meat over time, like completely cut it out of my system. Like if I had all the resources in the world, like I'd build all these greenhouses, I'd build all these supermarket, or like not supermarkets, but like community greenhouse supermarkets that are completely free and taken care of by the community, that would make the actual supermarkets obsolete. So if I had that, I wouldn't need animals. Like I'm already not really comfortable with eating eggs, and that was what I was comfortable with in between meat and vegetables, food, like that whole thing. So eggs was like an in-between thing. What was weird after I finished my fast was I actually felt more comfortable eating eggs for a certain amount of time. Actually, less comfortable eating eggs than I felt before, but more comfortable eating like turkey, specifically turkey, like meat. But in like small portions, because my whole meal shrunk down to like a solid one meal a day now. And I wouldn't eat like a full meal, like I wouldn't eat like a full like thing. It doesn't feel right to me. I tried it out. It doesn't feel right to me. So I'm like testing everything out. I lived however many years. What was it? Like, I was probably like 26, 25 when I, or 20, 27, something like that. A few years ago when I stopped eating meat. All right, shit, like 8 to 10 years ago now. Or started that process, thinking about it psychologically. What was I saying? Oh, so the fast. So after the fast, I didn't really feel comfortable with eggs, but for whatever reason, like, turkey was fine. Then I was thinking about it, I was like, if I lived and none of this shit was existing, like, if I was like living out in the hills, in the Oakland hills, and I had a family, like, I'd be growing stuff, I'd be fishing, I'd be getting all this stuff to bring back to my family for food, and I'd also be hunting turkey, wild turkey that live out there to provide for the family. Like, but we'd mostly be eating greens and stuff like that. But I wouldn't, like, especially in like an emergency situation, I'd hunt a turkey immediately for my family. But like right now, I'd say that right now. Like now, who knows what would happen weeks, months, years from now. But that's what I naturally felt. That's what came to mind. Like, I was like, who gives a fuck about this system? Like, what would we thinking about if this system wasn't here right now? So that's where I started, and that's where I was. And then at the same time, I was like, yeah, at the same time, but I still feel a certain way. Like, my body doesn't feel amazing when I ingest food like that. So, one thing I didn't finish was the the meat. So meat, cheese, and eggs. These are the three of the things that I'm working on. Cheese had already been a thing before the fast that I was like, just don't fucking want this shit in my body anymore. It made me feel weird, and I don't know, worse than meat. Cheese felt worse than meat actually after my fast. And I didn't want to eat cheese. I don't want to eat cheese at all anymore. I feel a certain way about eating eggs, but I don't feel so bad about, having like a 4-inch turkey sandwich. Like, that was what I felt comfortable with. And that's what's like, or a 4 or 6-inch turkey sandwich. And it didn't even have to be a turkey sandwich. Like, that's what I would consider like a full fucking meal for me for a whole day. That's where I'm saying, where I'm coming from with with my whole transition and the whole fast. So this protein, back to the protein thing. This protein thing, like the food pyramid, is mostly to attack your spiritual and psychological relationship with this reality. So animals and all this other stuff, and yourself, your relationship with yourself. You can't see the spiritual nature and whatever, and so on and so forth. So, like I said, I'm working on this stuff too. This is the macro scale. I'm just sharing like my perspectives on this. I feel a certain way about like the like all these systems, and like at the same time we're healing and removing a lot of these programs. It's not going to happen overnight, and if you think you're going to force yourself to do something, that is not natural to do something like that. I've already tried to force myself to not do certain things, and that's not the way to do it. It has to be organic. It has to be natural. People in the New Age community do this shit all the time. They force themselves to do something, and then they just keep doing it and doing it and forcing and forcing and forcing. And eventually they just think that they've, evolved themselves, but they haven't. They've really just forced themselves into something that doesn't feel natural, that over time they've forced themselves into feeling natural, but it's still synthetic. It's not organic. This is why a lot of people in the New Age community have breakdowns, and they don't really have like a deeply rooted anchor point in any kind of way. Everything has to be shallow and manipulated. So so the psycho-spiritual weaponization of food includes the food pyramid, the protein thing, the vegan agenda, and how all those affect the spiritual, psychological, and spiritual warfare, physical warfare. Let's see what else. I talked about the protein, talked about the food, the drive-through in the food, the atmosphere of the food connection to pride in country, the food connection to pride in people, the food connection to like the first world representation of what food represents, like being able to go to any restaurant in a drive-through when other people are drinking like fucking sewer water and like dying from diarrhea and all kinds of shit in other worlds. Like I said in previous videos, largely those third world countries and those people are dying every day as a result of the attacks, the warfare, the psychological, spiritual, and physical warfare of the first world countries on them. This is why it's such a fucked up thing to see people ignoring or locking into a lot of these distractions, because people are really dying right now. And since it's not happening in their backyard, they think it's okay. They also think it's okay because they think that the American way, the freedom fighters of humanity, are taking care of it. Oh, the democracy and the capitalistic system of the new world that Christopher Columbus discovered, they'll be the policemen of the world. They're the ones that will eventually help all those poor and sickly third world country little peasant and savage primitive beasts. They'll eventually be helped by people like Bill Gates and all these other so-called philanthropists out there. They'll be helped by them. Oops, don't talk about how their vaccines are paralyzing hundreds and thousands of people in India. Don't talk about how their vaccines are killing. And what's that term when they take away their reproductive possibilities? You know what I'm saying? Fuck, what's the word for that? Anyway, what they're doing with these vaccines is sticking poisons, killing, shortening their lives, sickening, putting diseases in them, and also making them not be able to reproduce. Think about this. This is a known thing. Why do they want people to not reproduce in areas that are heavily melanated or are heavily filled with indigenous people? Why are they putting stuff in vaccines? Why are they making people in the inner cities kill themselves? Why are they putting guns? Why are the CIA and the FBI putting guns into the country and into the inner cities? Why is that happening specifically? Because the ultimate end game is that people die. And a certain kind of people die. Why are there so many fast food places in and around inner cities? Why are there so many liquor stores on the corners in inner cities? Why are there so many, like, why is hot Cheetos and all that stuff, like, marketed towards kids in inner cities? And then people say, oh, it's marketed to all of us. No, stop for a fucking moment and realize that when you drive in Hercules or Pinole or Concord or any kind of like Walnut Creek in and around Oakland, you ain't driving by 10 fucking liquor stores in less than 15 seconds or 30 seconds. You're not doing that in Walnut Creek. You ain't doing that in Benicia, in the suburbs, where redlining, the government-sponsored program, put so-called white people and put so-called black people in the inner cities. When they put so-called black people in the inner cities, why did the FBI put weapons in there? Why did they put all that fucked up food in there? Why did they put all those drugs in there? And why didn't they put it in the suburbs? Oh, it's happening. Oh, they're getting hit with meth and heroin now. But this is what I'm saying. There's a specific attack that is directly related to the attack like Bill Gates is doing in like Africa and India, paralyzing Indian children and pretty much chopping the spirit, the soul out of the reproductive potentiality of people in Africa and people here in the States. This is an actual This is an actual a confirmed attack on specific people. And still to this day, you have so-called truthers ignoring this truth. Consciously defending against it, telling me that I'm wrong for talking about it. Telling me that I'm divisive for bringing light to this shit. And a lot of those people in the comment section and who are making these videos are empowered by the ignorance, by the people who are the other truthers, the people who are the people that people are following. They are empowered because the YouTubers are also not talking about it, are also saying it's divisive, are also not having any fucking way of understanding, or overstanding what is really going on here. They can only talk about shit based upon like the mainstream media. The same way the vegan agenda is not really going to talk about the spiritual and psychological warfare. They're really going to focus only on the physical warfare. See, any kind of truth that's sponsored by the mainstream media or the mainstream consciousness, whether it's consciously or unconsciously, they're only going to max out at a certain kind of warfare or a certain kind of consciousness. And that consciousness is largely based upon and limited by shit like this that you're looking at right now, like the food that we eat, the things that we believe. Like you go on to a lot of the reservations and you'll see a lot of the reservations. There's no healthful food stores on reservations the same way that there's only liquor stores in the inner cities. There's not even in a fucking grocery store in West Oakland. The whole time I was living in West Oakland, there was just like this, there wasn't a regular grocery store. There was like a little funky Rudy Poot ass grocery store. You had to go into damn near another city to get to go to a grocery store from West Oakland. So what does that mean? You had to get all your fucking food. Like what do people without vehicles do or don't have money do? They eat dinner, breakfast, lunch, and dinner from the fucking liquor store. This is on purpose. This is what's happening on Native American reservations right now. En masse. Forcefully eating this shit. This is on purpose. Think of the microcosm of a Native American reservation. No jobs, no food, no real like resources to provide, like all these broken treaties. Now look at all the inner cities. It's the same shit. The inner cities, the ghettos, is the more heavily melanated people's reservations. Like the cities, the inner cities, that's our reservations. The Native Americans had their reservations. The indigenous people's reservations were the people who said, "No, I ain't going nowhere. Fuck you. I'm staying right the fuck right here. This is my place. This is my home. Who the fuck are you?" We stayed where we were. Some of us moved. We stayed where we were, said fuck you. And then they sent their forward teams in and turned our land into the inner cities and turned the suburbs into their land. And then what are they doing now with gentrification? They want more. They need more. They need they need that land that's worth more money. So they're gentrifying West Oakland. They're gentrifying East Oakland. They're gentrifying North Oakland. They're gentrifying the inner cities. All this land where they could build condos by the water. They can buy these homes, these old apartments, these old apartments that they evicted people from, that they ran down on purpose, that they let people die in. From the food, from the violence, from the crime. On purpose, over time, so they can kill themselves. With the drugs, the food, and the guns. And then once enough killing has happened, once those buildings have been emptied out enough, and once the people who used to own those buildings can't pay and can't own it anymore, the corporations come in and buy it, burn it down, and build a new condo in there. And then they do that with everything else. And before you know it, you have a new city. East Oakland has become, or West Oakland has now become, the Shoreline Commons. That's what it is now. The Shoreline Commons. Oh, the Shoreline Commons. The gateway to San Francisco. The West Oakland BART station. You see what I'm saying now? So this is before they didn't want to have nothing to do with it. Before West Oakland was the Shoreline Commons. West Oakland was that dirty ass ghetto where people were just shooting and killing each other all the time. But now, look at how the news and all the corporations are emphasizing it now and telemarketing it now. You see how this game is played? It's slick as fuck. And they use their people in order to do it. Like I said, these weren't settlers. Those were soldiers. That's why they don't like to use the word colonizers. They use immigrants and settlers. Oh, it's so sweet. No, that was the forward scout team. That was the forward team to instead of fighting war with or fighting the indigenous people with weapons, they fought the indigenous people with the niceties of the people that they called settlers and immigrants. Oh, we're just nice new people who are escaping our land, the persecution of our king. We're just coming over here now to get away from that. Oh, we're just really nice people. And then the government knew that. And they said, oh, yeah. And by the term government, I'm saying the government that is the no separation between the United Kingdom, the British Empire, and the so-called Western Empire. It's the same shit. So in order to take over the new world, the new land, they couldn't just, go to war on one level. They had to go to war on every level. So what did they do? They sent in their warriors, the Spanish conquistadors, down to South America for that team, destroy them with their swords and that kind of weaponry, and also destroy them with the weaponry of religion, Catholicism. So that's another another weapon. They hit people in the South with the French, installed that community, and then stole all the land. Then they had people come in through Canada. They sent in like the Polish and like all the Italians, the Irish, the Scots, the English, all these people that came in through Canada. They came in, all these people. This was a fucking attack. Think of this as an attack. It's not war is not all about weapons. We were conquered by niceties, and we're still being conquered by niceties right now. This is what the 4th of July is, and this is what your Black History Month is. Black History Month. What is black? That's like nigga history month. You as a niggas gotta give the niggas a month. Shit, fuck them. They're gonna get mad. They're gonna start yelling if we don't give them something. They'll be happy if we give them a whole month. How about that? Let's try it. Let's see how long it lasts. Black History Month. We're gonna honor Martin Luther King. I Have a Dream. Malcolm X. Harriet Tubman. Rosa Parks. The heavy hitters. What is that? Murderers Row. The Murderers Row of Black history leaders. The Babe Ruth. Dr. Martin Luther King. Lou Gehrig. Malcolm X. All this shit. It's ridiculous. But that's how it's sold to us. That's how it's going down. So what else is there? What did I leave off on? Food. What else is there with the food? So the inner cities, the ghettos, like literally this is what I was eating in high school for dinner. Multiple days for dinner when I was in high school. Freshman year of high school. When I was in West Oakland. 75-cent pack of salami wrapped in paper from Sam at the liquor store. A bag of 99-cent hot fries, and if I had it, some soda. If not, I was just going home and eating some top ramen and some, whatever was at the house. Because I was going there to get something extra to add to the top ramen, because really top ramen was the dinner. But, I had been, you work with, how to work with money when you don't have money. So when I didn't have a lot of money, like I had enough to, get like a bag of chips. That I could fall asleep okay in at night with, like 5 pieces of salami, a whole bag of 99-cent hot fries, and if I was still hungry, like a top ramen bag. And look at how fucking nasty that is. But that's a meal, right? That's a whole fucking meal. Like I can't complain from that being, living the way we were, and obviously in comparison with other people, you can't complain about that shit. But that's like the norm. That's like expected. That's what we were living in, and that's what people are still living in right now. So that is just like the extension, and a lot of people who are living that privileged life, they don't even know that exists. That's the norm. It's the fucking norm. So inner cities, gentrification, food, the difference between the suburbs and the inner cities and the food, the politicizing of diets. So that's another thing. Look at these fat ass fucking politicians. They're like these, like, what is that dude's name? Fuck. Chris Christie? Like that dude getting out there. Like this is what I'm saying. This is not to come down on overweight people. This is to emphasize the mind control of putting these sick ass motherfuckers out there as your leaders, as your representatives. Like Donald Trump is a so-called leader of the free world. Chris Christie was like his friend, and he was like a mayor or a governor or some shit. These motherfuckers are sick, disease. They are like the manifestation of a lot of this whole mind control. So they represent the same way they like the fucked up nature of people like Chris Christie and Donald Trump represent the same thing, like the American dream and like the food pyramid. They're like a physical manifestation of why people kill themselves with food and the medical industry and stuff like that. So another point to reference with the food thing is that and how it connects with health and welfare and all this other stuff is that if you can understand, I don't even have to go into the depths of this, because you can understand what the healthcare industry is when they have a McDonald's in like these big ass hospitals. It's not healthcare. It's a business. You're going into a medical mall, or like at best, I can't even use that term medical. You're going into like a sick addressment mall. Like you're an injured, sick, and a injured, sick, or in need of some assistance mall. That's not a hospital. It's not a healthcare facility. It's a place to go, handle some situations. It's a corporation that you go to go handle certain medical situations. So we have to remove a lot of this shit from, especially remove a lot of this stuff, these terminologies, to really find out what's going on here. So another thing is like to show the ridiculousness of like I said, American food, to show the emptiness of it, like the Big Bang and all this other stuff. American food, pizza, hamburgers, French fries, like fucking like nothing is so-called American, because nothing that they call American is of the actual American people. It's only of the fake ass bullshit America. The same America that these so-called truthers are trying to protect. Like Mark and Patricia. Patricia with her fucking British Empire guitar in the background of her live streams as she talks about flat earth. You know what I'm talking about? Like this is how fucked up this is. These people are sick. They're fucked in the head. They don't even know how they are like enslaved themselves, and how they're protecting their own enslavement. Largely because they have nothing to root themselves in. So they have to protect the hot dogs. They gotta protect the French fries. They gotta protect the hamburgers and the double cheeseburgers and the with the glazed donuts as the buns. Mexican for tacos and burritos, Taco Bell. It's a fucking American food. It actually is, obviously, because Mexico is the only organic American, but that's the whole thing. They don't play it like it's Mexican, like it's Mexico America food. No, it's like United States of American food. Like they just take it. You see all this shit? Look at this. Cheese, meat. Okay, that's one thing I did miss. And why I was kind of stalling with these, looking at this shit. The Dr. Sebi approach with the alkaline and the acidic observation of our relationship with food. This shit is not even at all aware of that alchemy. In fact, it has to remain ignorant of that relationship, the alkaline acidic relationship that we have with food and this reality as a whole. Not saying worship that and that's the answer to the end of the like everything. I'm just saying that perspective, Dr. Sebi's perspective, it has many benefits of paying attention to what that actually is. Like there's something there. We are electromagnetic beings, and what you put in your body is going to affect you on every different way. And true science, scientifically, spiritually, like alchemically, this has been studied and related to cancers and disease, all diseases, by Dr. Sebi. If you've never heard of Dr. Sebi before and you're looking for somewhere to start, I would recommend starting there. This is not at all medical advice. I'm not a trained medical physician or any kind of way. This is just my perspective on the medical field and all this other stuff. So Dr. Sebi's approach is not even studied or acknowledged by the whole fucking medical industry, the whole university system. Dr. Sebi went to the Supreme Court and won. He went to their Supreme Court and won in reference to his practices healing people. He was taken to court because of the way he was healing people. So, and won in the Supreme Court. This is why I think he was taken out by the system. But his perspective still lived. So this is what I'm saying. This is why you have the protein-focused reality. Because they want you to focus on the physical reality. Focusing on protein focuses on a bastardized version of the physical reality. The point is that it doesn't even allow you, that bastardized version of physical reality doesn't really allow you to get into the true nature of the physical reality. And it really, and not allowing you to getting into the true nature of the physical reality keeps you from going into the true nature of the psychological and the spiritual reality that relates to food and all that other stuff. So you're kept in the protein consciousness. You're kept in the protein bastardized, sliver of a physical consciousness. And that sliver of a physical consciousness is just enough to allow people, like I said, this system is very slick. It's very intelligent. It gives you just enough to stay alive and not ask any questions. Just enough to be a slave. Stay alive long enough, just enough to, benefit the system and die quick enough to where you don't realize what's really being done to you. Live in ignorance long enough to where by the time you're too old, by the time you realize what's going on, you're too old to do anything about it or too old to care. That's what's happening with the elders, so-called elders right now. A lot of them ain't elders. They're just eld. They ain't got no wisdom to them. They just old. There's a difference between being a wise old elder and just being an old ass motherfucker, just, with some experience. But really, you're just talking ego. There's no, that's the difference, really. Old ass people who just old, they ain't wise. They're just old with an ego. Wise people the elders are the wise ones who have learned from their ego bullshit and have now realized that they have something to share with the future generations. That's the wisdom. So people nowadays, like this whole food pyramid thing, that's what's happening with people who are old. They think that protein thing. They think like protein. Like, oh, I'm old. You gotta respect me because I'm old. No, you on a protein old diet. You ain't nothing wise about your old ass. You just an old ass ego. You on that protein diet. You ain't got nothing spiritual or psychological connected to your oldness. Your oldness is connected to only what your ego is. And that's what's happening. And that's why we don't have any really kind of like elder leaders that are like humble in a space to where they don't like that. Largely, a lot of them are just protecting their ego. It's just fucking ridiculous, but that's where the world is right now. That's a side effect to the ignorance of having to deal with, so many people, the blending between the micro and the macro, or the relationship between the micro and the macro. Hot wings, sushi. Mind you, I typed in American food. American food culture. Sushi, Japan, France, Italy, Mexico, Germany. This is all American food. And this is why they do this, because the food relationship that you had, all those things that I mentioned, food, the psychospiritual weaponization of food is the same way that they tell you that America is the melting pot of the world. It's the new way of the world. The food represents that. It's like consciously and subconsciously. This is what the food represents. This is why they don't care or address it. This is why they don't say like, oh yeah, we don't really have any food. we don't really have anything of any kind of realness to us. There's nothing real here. This is why they have to put their forefathers etched in stone. Like they'll etch shit like that in stone, but they won't go into the depths of the food pyramid. They'll etch the pictures of their so-called forefathers in the mountains of this land as their truth and what they are proud of. But they won't go into addressing how their own people are dying at the expense of, like, at their own hands, like at what they're being controlled by. Why? Because that's the intent. That's why they're doing this. Is on purpose. Look at how complex this is. Look at the menu at Denny's. Look at the menu at Black Bear Diner. Look at the menu at any place, any steakhouse and all this. Look at all this shit. Think of this as poison being fed to you. All that oil. Okay, so that's another thing with the fasting. My diet changed in that fast because my body changed in that fast. My body reset, cleared out all that shit. Not all of it, but what it could in that 15 days. And it reset. One of the big things in that changing your diet is the mucus production. And this is also a big part of Dr. Sebi's talk too. This is a part of the black seed oil I was taking. And the Irish sea moss is also helps with removing of the mucus from your body. So this is all mucus. This is also a part of Dr. Sebi's talks. Mucus production. So what does mucus do? It cakes everything. Like it cakes all of your organs. So a lot of your bodies, like my lungs was filled with mucus. I was coughing up shit forever. So people who are coughing up shit all the time, that shit's not normal. It's not normal. If you're coughing up stuff like phlegm all day, you have it. Like I'm still doing it. Mostly because I'm still smoking on a regular basis, not cigarettes. So that also affects like the mucus production in your lungs and all that other stuff too. So which is not a necessarily good thing, but I'll take it for the benefits of that comes from green. for now, where I am now, point being is that this food has an intention behind it. Same thing's happening with, I don't want to jump off of that green, that the cannabis being turned into like this food with all this genetically modified strains of cannabis being sold in these cannabis clubs. That's being weaponized as well. And once I find that, or come, I'll do a video on that soon enough. But it's the same way as like food being weaponized. Marijuana is being weaponized. Or cannabis is being weaponized. So anyway, I think that's pretty much it. The mucus. Oh, the mucus. So yeah, the mucus production cut way down. Like, oh, that's another thing too. I wrote some of this stuff down. I should get up and look at it, but I don't really care. It's not that important. People know what's going on with fasting. What was I saying? Shit. The mucus. Oh, so as the mucus was removed from my body, I started to, like during that 15-day fast, I started to realize that it was affecting everything in my body. So my voice, so I was still kind of singing in the shower. My voice, the notes that I could hit them a lot easier without all that shit in my body. Like that was one of the main noticeable things. Like my voice, it had a tone to it. It had a deeper sort of like a clarity to it. And my voice it came from like my chest. My chest felt less congested. So when my chest felt less congested, my voice and I had less phlegm in my body, I could vocalize more. I could feel my whole body felt like emptied out, like cleared out from a lot of that shit. So that was another thing that was beneficial from that fast. That euphoria, that clarity of the mind, that recalibrating of, like I said in the last fasting video, when we're born, we're on a constant like eating thing. Like you're feeding, you're eating from a child all the way. So I went from eating for the first 17 years of my life, like for the people, this is what I'm talking about, for the people who have this sort of who are privileged enough in comparison to like third world countries. You're like eating to stay alive for your whole life. For me, 17 going into the military, I kept that up, and I was still like trying to be strong and like build muscle and all this other, and that's what the military does. It fattens you up before you go in reception. They fatten you up before you go to basic training so you can turn that fat into muscle. So that was my relationship right after. That was my first relationship, personal relationship with food I had to provide for myself right out of high school, right out of the family. So I went from one bad relationship with food to a horrible, worse relationship with food, to where I was eating fast food like 4 times a day in the military, because as a private at that time, you don't have time. You got to be on time. You don't have time. You don't have money. So you have to do, in order to get more money, like you have to do all these things. You have to be strong and you got to work out a lot and all this other. You got to be smart. So anyway, food was another kind of escape too. And you can't be overweight. In the military, it was another escape. It felt good. It reminded me of home. So that whole thing was there. But I had to like work out. So I was eating a lot more because of the stress. Working out a lot more, which is also stressful. So this is how this is also weaponized and affects us in a certain way. But the point being in that whole thing, or the main point, is that when I went from one diet to another diet, that was my responsibility now. It went from bad to worse. So now I was being paid to feed myself fast food. So I got out of the military. I just did what I was comfortable with. I didn't know anything else. All I knew was that all I have to do is work out in order to be healthy. Food really doesn't matter of being healthy. As long as you work out 1,000,000 hours a day, you're good. That's what the military, that's what the mainstream reality is about. The gym rat consciousness is. People go to the gym all the time. They eat all this shit. But their body looks healthy. but they're not. They're largely psychologically and spiritually, and in many ways physically unhealthy. Like when I was in the military, and even when I got out of the military, but specifically when I was in the military, my body was in peak performance. Like I thought peak performance for my age at that time. Throughout those 7 years, I was still in my 20s. I was eating shit. I ran a full marathon. I was running like half, like all these long ass 10 mile runs, full marathon run, and then running like between, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 miles throughout the week. But my body was sick and horrible because I was eating fucking McDonald's 4 times a day. But you wouldn't know it if you looked at my body. You wouldn't know that. So this is the same thing that society does, and nobody really talks about it. Nobody really brings it up. Athletes, they don't really get into it, and the system won't allow athletes get into it. If they do, like certain athletes that are healthy, they won't televise them. They'll televise the athletes that are still talking about like eating hamburgers and shit like that. So let's see, what else is there? I think that's pretty much it. The food, stress, the culture of food. So yeah, look at McDonald's. Think of McDonald's as like military bases around the world. It's easy to see when you see Hawaii, Oahu in particular. Oahu is surrounded or is fucking infested with military bases. Marine bases, Air Force bases, Army bases. On that tiny little island, go look around at all the military bases. That is, and look at how the native Hawaiian people, the Polynesian people, are still protesting their presence there every day. Just like I said, the people who came over to the so-called settlers, came over to this land who were used as soldiers to maintain this is happening whether you like it or not, and we're gonna kill you with kindness. The same thing's happening in Hawaii today. They're saying they're going to kill you with protection. Kindness, protection. We're going to protect the hell out of you on your own land. And the Hawaiians are saying, you fucking assholes shouldn't have been here in the first place. Why are you not listening to us? Get the fuck out of here and stop acting like you're the fucking superhero of the world. Period. And they're saying, oh, you primitive and savage Polynesian people, you just don't know how good you have it. Look at Hawaii. There's a Gucci store on Waikiki. This is the consciousness of these individuals. This is fun. This is really kind of funny because I'm talking about the military and the army right now, and I see this Newport News, which is really fucking random because when I went into the military, my first military base was in Newport News, Virginia. This is funny as hell. So yeah, which is another heavily military-based area, and it's just another crazy thing too, because watching one of Dane Calloway's video recently, he was talking about how the original some of the slaves that were over here, or the people that the darker people here, were heavily concentrated in like Hampton, when first historic stuff, and Hampton's right down the road from Newport News. And point being is that Hampton, Newport News, Virginia Beach area is another heavily militarized area. You got Langley Air Force Base right there. You got Norfolk, Virginia, Fort Lee, Newport News, and a whole bunch of other little ones in and around there. It's right down the street from D.C. It's like 4 hours away from D.C. So this is like another like implant of control that happens. McDonald's, like I said, it's a weapon. Just like military bases are weapons. Look at all the fast food places. What happens when people travel? They want to go try the Mick, what do they call it? The Royale with cheese. They want to go there and try a Royale with cheese. And you see all these YouTube videos of these YouTubers going over to Japan and trying McDonald's in Japan or China and stuff like that, or India, stuff like that. And so we love this shit. Like, it's become a thing, and YouTube is normalizing this shit. See, when they're making these like videos about McDonald's in Japan and China, they're still talking about the physical warfare as if it's not a warfare. It's a physical something like cool. This is awesome. This is amazing. But it's your own demise. It's your own death and destruction. You're making a fancy, cool, little hip, little attractive thing when your life is really like a bacon double cheeseburger with covered in macaroni and cheese. That's the consciousness of this realm, or at least the people of this realm right now who are believing into this reality. I'll leave it there. There's enough examples of how this is totally food. It's fucking weaponized. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for the support. And until next time, from all my relations, peace, love, and harmony.